Hello and welcome. This is a new episode of Pussy, Mind and Soul. My name is Sophia Thome and this is a podcast for conscious entrepreneurs. Today's guest is called Tad and he is the founder or the creator of Marketing for Hippies, and I love his work, his page. I find it really inspiring. It really helps me in my business. And Tad is not a man of many words, but of a few precise words. So I try to do the same in this intro now. I hope you learned something. I hope you have fun listening. And I wish you a lot of success. Hello and welcome to Pussy, Mind and Soul. My name is Sophia Thome. This is my podcast and I'm so happy to welcome today Tad Hargrave from British Columbia. I'm super excited to have you as a guest in the show because several people in my community sent me your profile on Instagram and suggested, hey, don't you want to invite him? What he is doing, his work. We find it really interesting and we want to know more about it. So yeah, I'm super happy that you are here and that I can ask you some questions. Welcome, Tad.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
So your brand name or your company, the project, what you do, it's called Marketing for Hippies. Which is an amazing name, né? And okay, we are starting right in the middle. I thought, like, what's the difference between marketing for hippies and marketing for non-hippies? What needs to be different in marketing when it's a hippie doing the marketing?
Well, I don't know if it's a difference in the marketing, though. I think I approach marketing differently than a lot of people. But it's more that hippies have a certain relationship to marketing that is maybe more extreme than other people. I think everybody feels uncomfortable with marketing, but for hippies, there's so much stuff tied up in a critique of capitalism and not wanting to become the man and not wanting to be one of these sleazy marketing people and having some general aversion to money. And that makes it hard because then if you have a business but you're a hippie, how do you balance these two sides? And I saw so many of my friends struggling with this. When I was younger, they would have a beautiful business idea, something ethical, green, local, holistic, and they just didn't know how to market themselves. So I knew stuff about marketing from working with a leadership development franchise, and I read a lot of books and gone to some courses. So I knew more than they did, and I could just see where their blind spots were. And I seemed to have a way to be able to take some of the marketing stuff that was icky, gross, pushy, and translate it in a way that hippies could hear it and use it. And so that's just sort of developed ever since then. So it's not that this approach I haven't also seen used in other industries or other groups beyond hippies, but for hippies, I think marketing is just extra hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so when was this that can you take us a bit back? What kind of Tad were you when you saw your friends struggling? How did your career path develop? And yeah, how did all of this come together? And maybe also a bit with the timeline, because I have read in some of your content pieces that you're doing this for many years now. So the result that we're seeing online from your work is also something that you really developed over time. And I would like to know more about this.
Yeah. Well, wenn ich war ein bisschen jünger, ich habe in Edmonton gewohnt und ich habe zum Steiner Schule gegangen und so meine Mutter war eine Hippie und und so und so. Ja, ich habe viele vergessen. Ich habe ein bisschen Deutsch gelernt, wenn ich habe zum Steiner Schule gegangen, aber jetzt kann ich sagen, ich habe meinen Bleistift gefunden und ich habe Sauerkraut in meinen Lederhosen und That's all I got.
Cool, ich wusste gar nicht, dass du Deutsch kannst. Kannst du noch einmal langsam und deutlich wiederholen, was für eine Schule war das?
Äh,
Die Schule, zu
ja,
der
die
du
Schule.
gegangen bist? Was für eine?
Steiner Schulen,
Ah,
Waldorf.
eine Waldorfschule.
Eine
Mhm.
Waldorfschule, ja, ja,
Ah, okay. Ja, ja.
yeah. And so yeah, I kind of grew up in this hippie, holistic. My mother was a distributor for Vala and Valeda products, anthroposophical or homeopathic medicines. And then I ended up working for this franchise of a leadership development company, and I got into a lot of the personal growth stuff, which a lot of it very connected with business, capitalism, and I just got swept up. My dad died when I was 9 from MS, and the so I think that was me trying to father myself. I was trying to look for male role models and found it in these authors of personal growth books, which, given the choices, not bad. Could have been worse. And so, yeah, I really got swept up in that and became very, I don't know, into the capitalist milieu, even though, still had environmental sensibilities, but I was 18 at the time. So, or 16, I started volunteering for this franchise. And then, yeah, by the time I was 17, 18, I had a job there doing sales, cold calling people who'd been to these Tony Robbins coming to town, did a big 3,000 person seminar, and I was doing follow-up calls to these people, trying to sell them into these events that we had. And I didn't like what had become of me at that point. I just felt so fake and plastic and pushy, but I didn't know what else to do. This is what all the books said, all the audio cassettes talked about overcoming objections and using all these tactics to build rapport. And it was so mechanical, it was so artificial. And that started to bleed into my personal life. And friends would tell me so occasionally. And it just felt awful. And I wish I could say that my conscience was so strong that I would have just left at some point, but I was just so loyal to them, and eventually it collapsed for other reasons. The whole franchise ended, and so I was out of a job, and then I moved down to Santa Cruz, and I ended up working for a youth environmental social justice nonprofit, and we did summer camps for high school, college age kids, and did that for a few years. Started a project called Youth Jams, which is still going on. Yesjams.org is the website, and or yesworld.org. And yeah, started these gatherings, bringing leading young change makers from around the world together, then eventually in different communities. And then I was going back and forth between Edmonton and Santa Cruz, and it just got too much, and I realized I had to choose a place, so I chose Edmonton. And I then had to have a way to make money. And sort of in the middle of all this overlap, I was doing workshops for high schools, doing personal, like a school spirit leadership workshops for high schools, because that's what I known. I was a high school, I was the president of my student council in high school. And so I thought, well, I know something about that. I'll teach workshops on that. And so I combined some of the personal growth stuff with, what I'd learned in my extremely brief leadership career in school. I started doing these workshops. I probably did 80 of them over the years, and they got really good. It was really satisfying. And then I just kind of lost the spark for it. And I think I could also I remember seeing how the young people were looking at me and putting me up on a pedestal. And I'd had the experience of seeing people on pedestals and seeing them fall. And I could just tell I wasn't ready for that level of power or influence. That it was unnerving to me. And because I was very charismatic. It was really easy being at the front of the room. It's always been easy. But part of it, I lost the spark for it. I didn't care about it as much. And part of it, I was unnerved by that. And so I ended up setting that down. And then I'd have a way to make money. And I'd done these summer camps, but I was always talking. I was always just yammering. and a lot of these camps were about holding space, letting other people speak, and I just wasn't very good at that. I got better at it, which is nice, but I realized fundamentally I just have things I want to share. I thought, oh, I don't have to hold space. I could also teach a workshop and people pay you to hear you talk. And that was just such a revelation. Oh yeah, people want you to talk to those. So I thought maybe I should do that. That'd be more honest. And I thought, what could I talk about? And I thought, well, I learned about this marketing stuff and it seems to be helpful for friends. So I put it out. And of course, the first workshops weren't much to write home about. They weren't very good. But I kept with it and they got better. And somehow, 20 or so years later, here I am.
Thank you for sharing. And did you learn about the marketing stuff autodidactisch, so by yourself with books to teach your friends?
I went to some workshops, but mostly it was audio cassettes and then maybe a few books. Yeah, in the beginning.
Yeah. Okay, we could talk about school systems now because I think it's really cool the kind of school you went to. Or let me just put this quick question, or maybe it's gonna not be quick, but that doesn't matter. We have time. What can you, or do you not have anything to compare it with because it's the only thing you know? But are you aware of some of the ways that going to this kind of alternative school has shaped you, and also like the foundation it gave you for also what you're doing today? Are you aware of how this is how also your school education has shaped what you're doing today? Yeah, how do you feel about this? How do you feel that you went to a school, a Waldorf school, and how does it help you today?
Yeah, ich weiß es nicht.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah, it's hard to know because I was in it. Although I was in Waldorf up until grade 6, and then I went to public junior high and high school. So grade 7 through 12, I was in public school. And the public schools I went to were pretty great. I had great experiences. I went to an arts high school, so it wasn't Waldorf, but it was wonderful. I had a good time there. And so, but I do feel like it had its way with me. We learned a lot of myths and Greek, Norse, Roman myths, Gilgamesh, this kind of thing in elementary school. And I have always had this love for stories ever since, and storytelling and folk tales. And outside of the marketing, that's probably where my life is going. Is eventually I'll hang up the marketing stuff and move into more of this cultural work around storytelling and exploring that kind of thing. And I very little doubt that has a lot of its roots in Waldorf. Yeah, so I've always felt very home with that, and I feel so lucky. My kindergarten was carding wool, spinning wool, mint tea, wooden toys, time out in nature, lots of time to play. So I feel very blessed to have been on the receiving end of all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned that it was hard for you to, or you didn't feel comfortable in the role of being put on a pedestal when you were in the high school teaching workshops for children, that you didn't want to be seen as the person who knows it all or something. Has that changed, or how is it for you different now? Because your Instagram has blown up. You really received a lot of new followers in a short time, and it's, I think, because your work resonates and because it's good. And how is that today with the job that you are having today to be in this role?
It feels different now. A couple things are different. One is it's adults. It's not a youth who are just so impressionable. So there's that. And then second is, I'm talking about business. So, I mean, of course, I get into some deeper things, but fundamentally, I'm a business coach, I'm a marketing coach who just happens to bring other angles to it. But that's the context that people are coming to me. So I don't feel as much weight. As I move into more cultural things, I just think there's much more weight on that in terms of expectations, properly so, with that kind of work. But I feel fine about it. I don't have any particular hang-ups around it that I'm aware of, or fears or nervousness. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you give us some? I mean, I have received a lot of your content, and it really helps me in my business a lot. So, if anyone who's listening, I can only recommend to check out the show notes. And yeah, there you will get access to many of your things that you also give away wonderful free content. Um, but yeah, let's go a bit into the business thing. Ne? I found it so interesting what you said, that hippies have a hard time with money, have a hard time with, am I allowed to make marketing at
Mm.
all? Is there something that, like, there's like the main block, the biggest block that all the hippies have? Is there something that you often, yeah, see that we can, yeah, talk about now? And yeah, solve this little problem here.
Well, the biggest thing across the board, the reason that marketing feels so bad to do and so bad to receive, I think has to do with the fact that and I got this from a fellow, Ari Galper of unlockthegame.com. And he said, in traditional sales, we're taught to go for the sale, we're taught to go for the close, we're taught to get people to say yes. And but what he proposes is that instead of that, we go for the truth of, is this a fit? And so that's to me the shift, is we're moving from this kind of coercion, trying to get people to do something that we want them to do, whether or not they want to do it, whether or not it's a match for where they're at right now, to just seeing, yeah, is there, and not walking in so certain, because as soon as you have this agenda, well, no, I just want to get what I want to get, well, then consent is the first thing to fly out the window. And any kind of presence and awareness is gone, because I'm not paying attention to the person. I'm just so after my goal, and everything becomes either a hindrance or a resource to that. Their concerns get turned into objections, which I have to overcome. And it's just all about me and what I want, rather than, okay, this is a real human being in front of me, and I don't know. But if your goal is to get the sale, then you have to know. You have to know it's a fit. You have to believe in your work. You have to believe in the value of what you're offering. And if you don't get them to say yes, you obviously didn't believe, or they believed in their limitations and you didn't convey them the value to them properly because you didn't believe. So we need to work on your inner game. And and then you get all the rationalizations where people are fundamentally indecisive. So you have to help them. You got to make the decision for them. And or you have to help them make a decision. Translation, that decision is for them to sign up. And it's and all of the false scarcity and urgency gets justified because my real goal is to get them to say yes. My real goal is that they sign that piece of paper, they pay the money. That's what I'm going for. And I don't think that's a noble goal.
It sounds like we assume that the person we talk to is an idiot.
Well, you have to. I mean, you've got to just dehumanize people. And then we use language like, and I'm not being too precious about the language, but it's worth noting when we start talking about real people as prospects who we are going to convert, and start using these just amorphous labels for them instead of treating them like an individual. I mean, do we need people to buy from us as entrepreneurs? Yes, clearly. Do we need this person to buy? No. Do we need the people in this room to buy? No. We just need people to buy. And so then it changes the game, because if you're realizing, oh, okay, I got to find people for whom it's really a fit, well, then you get smarter about your marketing and you stop going in front of groups where it's probably nobody going to be a fit. And you try to find where the people who are a fit, so that when you make the offer, more of them are likely to say yes without the pressure, without the funny business. Instead of walking around with this, no, what I have is valuable. It can help anybody with anything. And then just taking every opportunity that comes, but rather saying, no, wait, I'm doing a particular thing that's for a particular group of people, it solves a particular problem. Where could I find the people who would be the best fit for me? And let me go there where the chances are higher that they would be interested, and that if they said yes, they'd be glad they did.
Yeah, so there we are in the corner of niching and knowing what the problem is that we are solving, and being really precise, and having also the courage to be precise, and also to say, nah, some things I don't do and I'm not good for. Yeah.
Yeah, which is a relief to everybody involved at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Why am I on your podcast? Your podcast seems not to have much to do about, from the title, much to do about marketing. So how did I come to be here? What's the connection you see between what you're on about and what I'm on about?
So Pussy, Mind and Soul is a podcast for conscious entrepreneurs. And that's why you're here.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. Maybe it's for hippies. I honestly, I'm thinking about also renaming the podcast. I used to work a lot with menstruation. And that's for me kind of like a base pillar of female empowerment. And that's why I call the podcast Pussy, Mind and Soul. And I'm actually thinking about renaming it to Business, Mind and Soul. There would be a bit more, then you wouldn't ask yourself why you are here, probably, no?
Well, but I don't know. I mean, actually, I mean, the fact that you have the wording you do, to me, makes it very unique. But I'm just curious if there's any connections you would draw between, women's cycles and this. I don't know if there's a connection to that and pleasure or something, and business or marketing, but I'm curious how you put those two things in the same arena.
You mean the pussy and the business?
Yeah.
What do they have to do with each other? So for me, it's really the that I think listening to our body, and also having courage to live and work in alignment with our menstrual cycle, instead of living in alignment with what anybody else tells you to do, I think is super empowering. And that's for what I found, and I think many other women too find to be way closer to the truth. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's well, and I think this is one of the troubles with modern society broadly, is that it asks us to live in a way that doesn't feel natural to us, or that is not natural to us. And so it just feels terrible. And then when we go to marketing specifically, it asks us to go against our nature. We were talking about this before we started recording, but it occurred to me years ago. I was in Toronto because somebody made some comment of like, well, I should be better at marketing myself. And I just said, wait, time out. You should be better at marketing yourself. Is that true? Like, where does this thought come from? In fact, where does the thought come from that we should even be good at marketing ourselves? Because what I've seen is, for most of us, self-promotion is kryptonite. It's our greatest weakness. It's the thing that is most likely to undo us. We're so bad at it. It makes us all weak at the knees. We feel uncomfortable around self-promotion. And that's just how it is. I often joke, I said, the only people that seem to be good at it are psychopaths, who feel fine about it. But most of the rest of us, if you say, stand up in front of this group and convince them to buy from you and to work, we just don't want anything to do with it, even though it would benefit us. But it's actually because it benefits us, it has us feel odd about it. So that seems to be kryptonite. But our superpower seems to be across the board for humans, we're very good at promoting others. We're all so amazing at it. Yeah. We all have a lot of businesses that owe us immense thanks because we've sent them so many customers over the years, and it's easy to do, and it's fun. It's a pleasure to do, to talk up somebody else. So that seems like on the surface a recipe for hopelessness around being an entrepreneur because, great, you can promote your friends, they're going to make money, and you can't promote yourself. You're not, and it's worse in some ways because the reality is you'll never get good at it. You'll be less shitty at marketing yourself. And that's about it. That's as high as I think we should aim for. We're just never going to be so good at it. But it's not hopelessness. This is actually, this is not in the way of our marketing. This is the way of marketing. So translation, instead of having our marketing being about how do we learn the skills to better self-promote, we create the structures and mechanisms and tools that make it really easy that the people who love us and what we're doing can share us up and promote us. That's the way. Because almost all marketing statistically, anecdotally, is all word of mouth. That is the driving, I mean, yes, there's Facebook ads and all that, but that you just have to keep spending money. Word of mouth, there's a certain point, it's a perpetual motion machine. It runs itself. There are a lot of businesses in the world that spend $0 on marketing. They spend nothing on marketing. All they do is take care of their people, and the word of mouth is so strong. We can think of therapists like this. There's certain yoga teachers whose classes are just always full. Certain restaurants, you got to book way in advance. And it's so much of it is just word of mouth at a certain point. So that's how marketing actually happens. Mostly in the long term. In the beginning, you may have to what we call, priming the pump. You got to get the water going. But once it's going, it's that's where it goes, is the word of mouth. And the word of mouth is not a result of you talking yourself up. It's not a result of you bragging and boasting. It's a result of other people boasting about you and bragging about you. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That was really important to say, because like one question that I also had for you is like, Ted, what do I do if I have a moment or if I'm starting? And I think many beginners have this problem, and I don't feel confident. I don't feel sure that what I offer is of value. I don't feel sure that anybody wants to pay this amount of money for what I have to give, or any money for what I have to give. The first euro I got for my job, I was like, oh my God, someone's going to pay me. So what can you tell to someone? And I want to say one thing that I have just heard is that it's okay. That it doesn't mean that you're never going to be a successful entrepreneur, that you're shit from the beginning, that your product isn't worth anything. It's just a feeling inside of you, and you can go with it anyways, probably. But I want to hear from you, like if someone has the courage to be really vulnerable and say, you know what, I don't know how to sell it because I feel in my heart that I want to do it, but I don't feel worthy, or I'm not sure. How can we start? What could be the first step?
Well, there's a few things. One is I wrote a whole ebook on this topic called Who Am I to Teach and Charge for It? That goes into this in more depth. But let's say there's a couple places that we can begin here. The first is it's good to get clear, how do we want our marketing to feel as a baseline? We're often very clear how we don't want it to feel, or we're clear that we don't want it to feel bad, but it's worthwhile just thinking like, okay, if I had to pick 3 words of how I want my marketing to feel, what would they be? Respectful, kind, exciting, whatever those words are. It's good to just have an aim, a direction, just so that at the base, it's not the marketing that's feeling bad. But right then, these, even if the marketing feels good, right, I feel good in the way I market this thing that I don't think anybody wants. There's still that. And first of all, with that, yeah, it might not be very good. That could be true. This isn't necessarily a fear. This could be integrity, where you realize you actually don't have the chops, you don't have the capacity. Sometimes people think, oh, it's just a lack of confidence, but it can be a lack of competence too. It may be that you just know you don't have the capacity to deliver on what you say you're going to deliver on. So that's worth checking out. And so in the beginning, we might want to start with much more modest promises, much more humble. In the beginning, this is why in traditional cultures, there were apprenticeships. If you were going to be a blacksmith, you just didn't take a weekend course on blacksmithery and open your forge and say, hey, everyone, come, let me make your horseshoes. Ever. No, you learned for years with a blacksmith, and they wouldn't even let you touch you just sweep up the shop, for years. And you would watch and learn, and slowly they would let you touch the tools, etc., until you knew what you were doing clearly, and then they would release you. So I think this, like, oh my God, who am I to do this? Do I have the skill? That's a very modern thing. That's in part the result of we attended a weekend workshop, and we just, it's not the same as a 21-year apprenticeship. Let's say that. So it takes time to learn these things. And so in the beginning, it's not a bad idea. You charge a little less, or it's pay what you can, and you just learn. When I first started, I did all my evening workshops. I did like an intro workshop, and those were free for the first while. And my weekend workshops were pay what you can. And I just thought that felt good. Then if they don't pay, if it's not very good, they don't pay much. No problem. And then, I started charging more and more. And the way I knew to charge for my intro workshops was people started insisting on paying me. They like wrote me a check for $50 and wouldn't accept it back. Yeah. So then I thought, okay, if they're insisting on paying me, maybe I should charge now. And I did. So it happened gradually over time. And I still do pay what you can, just for other reasons, with the weekend workshops or day-long workshops. But so there is a competence question. But the other piece is, sometimes the reason we feel a lack of confidence is because we're trying to be everything to everybody. And at some level, we know we can't be. Because what that turns into is having to improvise with every client, because every client comes with something different. Versus if we're willing to niche and say, no, I really work with this issue with these kinds of people in this kind of moment in their life. That's what I work on. You may notice you feel a lot more confident and competent. And this is also why it's helpful to, this idea that our deepest wound is often a doorway to our truest niche, the places we have struggled the most. That's often where we have the most to contribute and give. And so that can be very helpful in terms of feeling confident, because it's like, well, I overcame this myself personally. And so I know I have something to say about it. And it's also worth remembering, you only need to be a step or two ahead of people. You don't need to know so much more. You just make sure you don't, if you're only 2 steps ahead, don't promise and pretend you're 10 steps ahead. You can just say, look, I don't know everything, but I know enough to get you out of the mud. I know enough to help you take that next step. That's all that people need sometimes. And while you're helping them with that, you may be learning to take that next step yourself. And, you may always stay ahead of them. But you don't need to know everything. You just need to know something that'll be useful, and don't pretend it's more than that. And then, of course, there really is a lot of people grew up in their lives with a message from their parents around, who do you think you are? And that's worth looking at. There's a colleague of mine, Betty Cottom-Birtles, and she does this work specifically with a lot with entrepreneurs. And that's what she finds. She's like, okay, well, let's go back into your past. She does hypnotherapy. And was there a time, like, where did this come from? And it's often, oh my God, I remember my father looking at me and saying, because I was trying to be smart, or I was just sharing some insight I had. He said, who do you think you are? And I just was quiet ever since. So sometimes there's really deep stuff emotionally that has us not believe we could have anything of value to say. And then, depending on where you grew up, maybe women have been really, suppressed. So there could be a lot of things going on. Those are some thoughts that occur to me.
Thank you. So, as a entrepreneur, someone who's building a business, there are so many areas that we have to take care of, né? And marketing is one of them. When do I know that it's the right time to invest my resources and my energy, my effort in marketing? And when do you think is a better time to work on a product or work on myself or work on any other part of the business?
Boy, that's a great question. Yeah, we've only got 24 hours in a day, and we've only got so much money. The limits are very real. And yes, at some points, it's better you just take a break and I'm going to develop this product to sell. This is the tough part. I'll just say there's different phases and stages of business, right? In stage one, this is the kind of innovation, experimentation phase. And we're just constantly experimenting. We're trying all sorts of new things. We're working with all sorts of different clients. And at this point, the money is not enough to sustain you, probably. So you're either just eating rice and potatoes all the time, or you've got a part-time job, or you're living on savings or whatever. But in the beginning, it's just almost no money. At stage two, there's a kind of concentration that starts to happen. We start to figure out a niche. We start to figure out what our thing is. We stop trying to be everything to everybody, and we're starting to hone in. And at that point, we've got this kind of cash flow. Up and down, up and down. And so we'll focus on our marketing, and then we make more money. But then we start focusing on developing a product. But now we're not marketing, and some cash flow goes down. And it's a real roller coaster. But if you're willing to keep riding it, then you do transition into phase three, which is more this wave. Flattens out quite a bit. And now you probably have a part-time assistant or two. You're really starting to build a business, and everybody's getting paid well. It's sustainable, it's working, and the cash flow is a little bit more even. And then at stage four, you've become a business owner, and you could walk away for 6 months and everything would keep going in the business. So not everyone wants to get to stage four, but let's just say stage three is at least the goal for a lot of entrepreneurs, right? So then how do you get there from stage one? And it's just going to be a bit of a roller coaster, is one of the bottom lines. But what can help get you there faster? One, approach your marketing ethically, because the unethical marketing bites you in the ass. You do this stuff that's pushy and aggressive, manipulative, and it gets you bad word of mouth. It's no good. So this is, to me, the foundation. Second, really think through your niche. Really dig into that. If anyone wants free help on niching, if you go to marketingforhippies.com/puttering-prep, PUTTERING-PREP, there's some free exercises on that. But that's helpful just to think about who you want to reach. And then you got to think about your point of view and really articulate that. How do you see things, and be honest about it with the marketplace. Fourth, think through your business model. What's the structure of your business? And then fifth, this idea of hub marketing. And instead of just trying to reach people cold, trying to find out where do your people already hang out and go to those places. Who are they already connected with? Connect with those people. So I imagine that as a pyramid, biggest at the base. But the reason I lay all that out is get help with those things. If you want to go faster, I would say those are the 5 in that order, roughly. But if you want to go much faster, get a coach, get somebody who can help you. If you try to wing it on your own, it's going to take so much longer to get there. Let's just say, though, from stage 1 to stage 3 is about 3 years if you're really hustling. To get it to a sustainable cash flow, it's about 3 years. That can take much longer if you're going to be unethical. You're not going to pick a niche. You're not going to, ever share your point of view, and etc. that'll take longer, or you never get there. But if you focus and you do those things, even on your own, probably 3 years, but with help, possibly faster. But at least very solidly within 3 years, I think you should have something that'll sustain you and a few others. Um, and yeah, so in terms of then, how do you know when is it time for marketing versus a product? It's just hard. You kind of figure it out as you go. Oh, I need money. I guess I need to start marketing again. And then, the cash flow starts to come in. But what I would recommend to people is keep things very simple in the beginning. I mean, in the beginning, it's just a outrageous, wild experiment with lots of things. But there comes a point where I would just, for the sake of simplicity, you pick one target market, you pick one niche, and you pick kind of one offering or a very simple sales funnel. Really easy. Keep it, okay, do an intro workshop, have a weekend workshop, and then there's a coaching program, for example, as a very simple model. And you do that intro workshop everywhere you can. You get interviewed on a lot of podcasts. You invite people, and you, at that intro workshop, you tell people, hey, I've got this other program, this weekend thing, and or my coaching program. And people come to the weekend, you say, if you'd like to work with me more in depth, here's a coaching program. But I would just have it be as simple as you can on one group, one offering. This helps make those decisions easier, because once you've got the sales letter written, for all these things, once you've got the basic marketing system set up, or with the intro workshop, okay, I've got a list now of who might be willing to host it, and I just reach out to them, and I've got the outline. I could do this workshop in my sleep. I already have the write-up for it. I've got the social media posts that a host could use. It gets much, much easier once you have all that set up. But what happens so often is people are always doing new things. Oh, I've got a new workshop. I've got a new offering. And every time you do a new thing, it's so much work, because you got to write the sales page. You got to come up with the curriculum for it. You've got to try it and learn from it, get feedback, get testimony. There's so much. But if you have the same thing and you're just willing to do it over and over and over again, these concerns diminish quite a bit about when do I focus on marketing, when do I develop the product, because you already have the product developed and you're just improving it over time. But that's already there. So then you can put more time on the marketing. And eventually, of course, the goal is you don't need to put any time in marketing, because it's mostly word of mouth. I don't know. That's what comes to me. It's a tricky one. It really depends, I suppose, on people's situations.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, the word of mouth, it's working what you're talking about, because that's how you ended here.
Totally. If people look at their own experience, look at all the things in your house that are precious to you, that you bought, that you spent money on, and you'd be surprised how many of them say, oh, because somebody told me about this. It's often that, oh, that book. Oh, well, no, I just went and bought that book. But wait, did somebody tell you about the author? Like, why that book? It's amazing how many things in our life you can trace back to word of mouth. Aside from impulse purchases, a lot of it comes down to that. Yeah.
So this is a question not around marketing, but more around the life as an entrepreneur. How do you do you sometimes get motivation from somewhere when you don't feel motivated? And do you have an advice for procrastination or getting things done in the right time, that I think should be the right time, not being too late, being fast enough? How is that for you? And can you share something that you have learned?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is, of course, make sure you have a business you're already inspired by. Because if you pick a business that you actually don't give a shit about, it's just nothing else matters. So it's good to pick something that you enjoy doing. That's one. Second is from a marketing standpoint, make sure you pick forms of marketing that you actually enjoy doing. Don't pick forms of marketing that you would want to avoid. If you are introverted, you don't make networking your big, marketing strategy. If you're terrified of public speaking, then don't set yourself up to be on stages and I have to get myself booked to be on people's stages, because you'll just avoid it. So there's that. But let's just say, no, I like doing all these marketing things and I just get busy and I get swamped and and get caught up in other fun things and I end up putting this off. Well, there's a few thoughts. One is, this is also where hiring other people can be helpful. Yeah, and I recommend, when you hire your first person, you're not hiring an assistant so much as you're hiring a manager. You're hiring somebody to manage you, to remind you to do things, because it's very easy to just forget or let things slip on our own end. But then in terms of our own systems, just make sure you have some kind of time management system. Maybe that's a calendar. I use an app called Things. You can get it at culturedcode.com. There's Asana, there's Trello, there's all sorts of these day timers and apps that you can use, but find something that you will actually use that works for you to help you stay organized in that way, because otherwise things can slip. And then here's the hardcore answer, and this is just a real deal. Here's the reality. Most of business is not fun. Most of business is maintenance. Most of it is just tending to the day-to-day. If you run a farm, it's mostly not the big parties and dinners that you host and being at the farmer's market. It's mostly going out and milking the cows every morning. And you don't want to do it. But if you don't milk the cows, it hurts the cow. And if you ignore your business, it hurts the business. So it's good to figure out what's the cow milking that has to be done. And this is what I recommend. Take 6 different pieces of paper on that, or index cards. On the top of one of them, you write the word daily, the next one weekly, the next one monthly, quarterly, annually, and then question mark. And you start making a list of what's everything you need to do every single day for your business. Check your email, check your spam folder, check social media. Maybe that's it. But you need to do that every single day for your business to work. You do the same for weekly. Yeah. You do the same for monthly and quarterly, annually. And the question mark is, here's some stuff that I know I need to do, but I'm not sure how often. First of all, just make a list like that. And I would really recommend, set a timer for half an hour or an hour and just sit there and let yourself be bored staring at the pieces of paper, keep adding stuff. Then take a week, and as you think of things, keep adding it. Because more things will, oh, right, God, that thing slipped. Oh, I should do that more regularly to check in on that so it doesn't slip. Once you've got that list, after a week, you go through the list and you put times next to every single action. So checking my emails, that's half an hour a day. Checking social media, 15 minutes a day. Okay, so that's 45 minutes every day, right? You put the total there for the daily. You do the same for weekly. So what you'll see is, okay, 45 minutes a day on the dailies. Weekly, it's 5 hours of stuff I have to do every single week. Monthly, 6 hours of stuff. Quarterly, 10 hours. I don't know what it. Yeah. So once you've got that, now you schedule that. You put that in your calendar as a block of time. Divide it up however you want. The weekly stuff, you could have 1 hour a day. You could do just one big block, but put it in your calendar, all of it. And this will sober you up. Because then you start to see, oh shit, I don't have a lot of extra time. And then the other thing I really recommend doing is making sure you schedule, and this is something I need to be better at myself, scheduling buffer time, just blank space into your life, and decide when are you going to start work and stop work, so you can have a life. And you schedule this in and you just see how little you're working with. Yeah. And just knowing that can be very helpful. You just start to see, okay, I got to do these things to keep the ship afloat. And again, this is also where having an assistant can help, because they can see these lists. I just have them in spreadsheets, and they could be asking you, checking in meetings, hey, how's it going? Did you do this? Did you do this? And reminding you. You can have little tick boxes that you check off on the way. And the beautiful thing is, once you create a system like this, it also allows you to start offloading things and delegating and deputizing some of those things to others. Like, okay, I don't want to check the spam folder anymore. You check the spam folder. I don't want to check the social media messages anymore. Can you check them? Let me know if I need to respond to anything. You can start to offload some of these, and you build their job description the same way. So that's one thing. And then the other one is, so that's the kind of maintenance checklist, which is most of it. But then you're also going to have, every time you do an event, there's like a little launch checklist. Yeah, of things you need to do to prepare and to promote the event, and now you can see why, if you're doing a different event every month, well, that's a different checklist every month. It's so overwhelming. But let's say once a quarter, you've got these kind of workshops, great. There should be a checklist of everything that needs to be done to get that set up and promoted. And every time you do it, you go through that list for that specific thing. And, before, like 3 months before it happens, you take all that and you just start scheduling those actions. I'm going to do that on this day, this on this day. Take an hour or two and do it. It's boring as hell. It's so tedious. But then it just becomes a nice stroll. You're not sprinting in the last 3 weeks because, nothing's been done. It's all happening slowly over time. But we need a lot more space. I mean, I think this is part of it, is if you want your business to succeed, the most important thing is it has to be a priority. If it's not a high priority in your life, it's just probably not going to work, or not as well as you'd like it to. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That sounds like a really nice technique that I would like to try with the 6 different papers. Where do you have this from? You found this out over time? Your own brain.
Yeah, I just saw that it was such a grind. It was just maintenance, and I thought, oh yeah, I just started to make the list for myself, but also for employees, because I was realizing people I was hiring were dropping the ball a lot. I was like, oh, so maybe if you just did this every week, you wouldn't drop the ball. I guess this you used to do every day. Once a month, can you do this? So it just started evolving. And now there are those checklists. So whenever I meet with them, we go over those lists, which is helpful, because then you see, this thing has not been checked for the last month in the weeklies. So do you need help? Yeah, I don't actually understand what that action is. I'm realizing. Okay, no problem. I don't understand either. Let's delete it, or let's put the instructions here. And it's so much of business is systems, and if the business isn't working, we blame the system, not the people, including ourselves. If it's not working, it's not you necessarily. More likely, it's a system that's missing. And if you had that system set up, it might actually work really well.
Yeah. I also like what you say about, to me, it also sounds that it's also not that glamorous, no? Milking the cow. You get dirty. And it's the same every day. Do you also feel that entrepreneurship is sometimes a bit, I heard someone saying this the other time, but I don't remember who it was. I think it was like in a private conversation, that entrepreneurs are the new rock stars. It's like the super trendy profession to have, and maybe there sometimes also our expectations are a bit like, what do we think it is? It's that we find a magic manifestation miracle formula, and then we are a millionaire, and that's what it means. And we have a lot of fans or followers, or
I haven't thought about that, but it makes sense. The place that actually makes the most sense is most rock stars are constitutionally incapable of taking care of themselves. They're disasters. Like the maintenance of their daily life, their ability to like feed themselves is not good. And this is why they have managers. This is why they have, roadies helping them out. Because man, if it was just them trying to run their career, no chance. Because most of them, they're the artists. They just want to follow their inspiration and do the thing they want to do. But if you're in show business, oh, it's part show, but it's part business. And so it's not always that you have to do the business side of it if you're an artist, but somebody has to. Somebody's got to handle that side of it. Because yeah, being on stage, this is why they call them the talent. Here's the talent. Their role is to be on stage, and our role is to give them the stage to be on. Because yeah, left to their own devices, and this is the reality. Most entrepreneurs are actually artists. There's so many people who become entrepreneurs, particularly in the holistic scene, who are actually just artists. And if you on YouTube, if you just search Tad Hargrave, entrepreneur and artist, I have videos that go into this. But business is a marriage between those two, the artist and the entrepreneur. And it's not an easy marriage. They want different things. They are completely different people. Their natures are different. Their goals are different. And it's a kind of uneasy truce sometimes. But both functions have to be played. If you leave one side out, it's just the business won't work.
Yeah. And I think also building a business around your art, if, for example, you're working in healing arts, it also gives you the space in your life to have this time to create art. If you can create and build a system around it that sustains you and maybe others also.
Totally. And if you can't, and it's not the worst thing to have a job. T.S. Eliot, the famous poet, he was a banker. There are a lot of artists who created incredible art and they had a job. So there's nothing wrong with having a job, because sometimes people, they discover when they're an entrepreneur, it's like, wait, I'm spending all my time marketing. I'm not spending the time doing the work. So this, again, for me, comes down to really clear niche, clear point of view, clear, simple business model, so that we're not stretching ourselves so thin.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tad, for the conversation. I wanted to give you a few compliments.
Okay.
If you're ready for it. So, what I find really remarkable about you, and also, if I'm allowed to share this from behind the scenes, our email conversation, what you're talking about, that it's good to have a clear niche and to be really precise. I feel like you're also really living this and doing this with your words. Like when you give me an answer, it's precise and it's to the point, and I think that's so cool. And that's also how our emails were. You write an email with 2 words, but these are all the words you need to write. There is no unnecessary anything around, but it's very effective and efficient, and that's what German people like. Das gefällt uns. Ja, nee, I find it's really inspirational. Yeah, that you have really nice and clear answers. And so I want to wrap this up because I have some papers to write, 6 different papers. I think that's a wonderful method. And thank you for sharing all the really also very concrete answers that you had, and very concrete things that we can do. And I want to give you a small opportunity as well to promote yourself. You want to give it a try? You want to try to be a little less miserable, or just tell us where can we find you? Where can people get more of this wonderful information that you have to offer?
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, no, I don't particularly want to. It's I will, but it's just worth noting. I mean, I teach this stuff, and it's not like when the opportunity for self-promotion comes, that because I teach it, I'm like on the other side of it, and I love it, and I feel so comfortable and at ease with it. I feel comfortable sharing ideas and teaching, but not with self-promotion. But if people want, marketingforhippies.com, it's all there. Everything can be found through the website. So that's probably the simplest.
All right, cool. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day,
Thank you.
you, Ted, and also everyone listening.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Pussy, Mind and Soul. My name is Sophia Thome. I hope you enjoyed it. Many of the episodes that I do are German, but in between there are always here and there also some English episodes. So if you want to hear more, scroll around and have fun. I wish you lots of success in your business and also some fun, because I think it's also nice to have fun. All right, so see you next time.